Hey guys, hope all is well. This is episode 46 of the Rugby Recap. You have myself, Rugby Itch, as well as the Kiwi lads. First one, man, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Tom, although I've got quite bad hay fever at the moment. I think it's because I put a bit of a garden on the green screen. I didn't want you to feel left out, so I decided I'd
I know.
match you there. But Super Rugby, what a round. We saw a couple underdogs getting themselves the victories and also some pretty one-sided affairs, a big injury for an upcoming All Black.
Yes.
We're going to have to wait and see what happens there.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall good weekend of rugby, and I assume you enjoyed it as well from the garden.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. This is a garden I'm in currently, but I wasn't watching all the Super League games here. But no, it was awesome. A good weekend for rugby. I did really enjoy lots of it, actually. There's some really good games. Some that was kind of a few kind of blowouts in terms of what we were expecting in terms of the games. But overall, it's a good game, a good kind of week of rugby in terms of Super Rugby Pacific. But again, before we get into the games, just obviously make sure, guys, to like the video. Greatly appreciate that, guys. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We want to reach towards that 600 mark if possible. And yeah, definitely comment below, letting us know your kind of, just kind of your thoughts about what you saw across the weekend. Yeah, so for the first game of the weekend, of course, we did have the likes of the Crusaders versus Chiefs. Crusaders winning their first dub of the week. Actually, no, sorry. I don't know why I said dub.
Dub. You're so hip,
Dub.
Tim. You're just so
I'm
cool.
thinking like basketball terms here. Anyway, okay, Here we go. Yeah, so the Crusaders, of course, got their first win of the season, 37 points to 26 against the Chiefs. A massive win, actually, for them because, I mean, when I look back at our predictions, I think both of us did predict the Chiefs to win that game. But now looking back at it, I kind of wish I chose the Crusaders because normally these two sides kind of go at it. It's kind of back and forth, really. So it really could have gone either way. But yeah, the Crusaders were really impressive, I thought, throughout that game. But yeah, what was your thoughts on that one? Because, again, a good win, really, for the Crusaders.
And it's one of those ones that if we had predicted the Crusaders, I feel like we would have gotten quite a bit of stick for it at the time, seeing as they were 0-5. But they were always expected to win a game at some point throughout the Super Rugby Pacific season. It was just a question of who were they going to beat, and they beat one of the top contenders. And the Chiefs, I thought that the Crusaders, overall, their side just looked a lot stronger than we had seen in the past. I thought Noah Hotham really stepped up at number 9 at a time where he needed to because they're a little bit uncertain. Like Willie Hines wasn't doing it. Hotham in his last performance wasn't great. So it was good to see him have a much better game. And the Chiefs overall, I know the big talking point, a lot of people blaming this loss on the fact that they didn't have Damian McKenzie, but Josh Jacob, I thought, actually did pretty well as that fly half for the Chiefs. And they just weren't clinical enough, making a lot of errors in those opportunistic times, I guess you could say.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's one of those where I think the back line at times of the Chiefs wasn't functioning to the same way we kind of expect of them, obviously with McKenzie not being there. But at the same time, they still had a very stats kind of back line. They had Moninawa, of course, getting a try for himself in this game, which is good to see. I believe that's his first try of the season, if I'm not mistaken. And again, just the whole back line kind of functioned to what you expect. But it was really just the Crusaders that really stood out. Johnny McNichol actually getting 2 tries for himself, which is great to see. Because again, he was called in, actually, I believe, was he the player that was called in for Lee Halfpenny or Will Jordan? He was one of the two because I think he was actually like Lee Halfpenny's replacement in a weird way because they had like so many replacements where Lee Halfpenny was the replacement for Will Jordan, but then he got injured. So obviously Johnny McNichol's come back in. And again, he's an ex-Crusaders player. Obviously, he played in the past, but obviously good to see him get a double in his kind of first game back at the back in Christchurch. But yeah, I think that just the Crusaders were really on form, I think, for most of the bits. I mean, Cullen Grace had a good game for himself, got a try to his name. I don't think who else kind of stood out in the game because I think Hopman, you are right, in that number 9 spot was really good. I thought he was actually impressive because, again, they've kind of been lacking in that 9 department. And I kind of wish, obviously, I know I'm thinking long term here, but I kind of want another 9 to come to the Crusaders. I just think there's a lot of 9s that are kind of spread out across Super Rugby where I could see them kind of, it would be a good move for them to go to the Crusaders because that's a department where I don't think there's really been a scrum half since Bryn Hall, I think, was always a very consistent player, I think, for the Crusaders. So they haven't really had a player like him since. Again, Mitchell Drummond has always been good, but he's been in and out, really. Yeah, overall, I just think it was a really good game to watch and obviously a good win for the Crusaders because it is really just what they needed to kind of, I guess, just boost their confidence going forward. But yeah, I mean, do you think that I know this was obviously just a question which you can obviously just say yes or no, but do you think they'll get into the playoffs just for what you saw in that one game? Do you think they have enough to kind of make the playoffs at the end of the season?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they'll be all right. Like, the thing is, there were a lot of losses for sides sitting around that kind of 9 and 8 and 10 kind of position on the table. So the Crusaders aren't actually as far behind as some people think. Now, you would think after having 5 losses in a row that would really hurt their chances. But, you know, when we look at the overall table as it currently sits, just looking here, the Crusaders, they are in 11th, of course, but they are only 5 points away from 8th place. So that's only one good victory, and they'll be right back in the hunt. So, yeah, like, I still see them making it to the playoffs, and I've said it all the way from the start of the competition. Even with them struggling a little bit this season, I would not want to be the team facing them in those quarterfinals, even if you're at home. Like, you just never know what type of beast is going to be there for the Crusaders, and maybe that beast has fizzled out with all those changes that they've had to make. But I think that there's still something there, and you got to approach them with caution.
Yeah, agreed. And that's something that's kind of scary to me because, you know, I mean, we'll go into them later with the kind of Blues and all that, but also the Hurricanes. Like, yes, they're obviously in the first and second position at the moment, but they could be facing the Crusaders as they could finish in that 7-8 spot or even higher in terms of that 6 spot. I don't see the Crusaders going in 5th. I think it's going to be 6, 7, 8. I think that's where they're going to finish at the end of the season. But it's one of those where the top 3, I mean, at the moment, it's the Hurricanes, Blues, and Brumbies. So to face the Crusaders at home, I mean, that's still a very tough game. And that's a game which you can lose. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough draw to who obviously gets them if that obviously comes to that case. But like we said, obviously, just a very good win for the Crusaders and something which they can obviously kind of use as a backboard going forward. Yeah, so of course, for the second game of that Friday, we did at the likes of the Wartars versus the Rebels. Rebels coming clutch, winning 27 points to 21 away in New South Wales. And yeah, it's a pretty impressive victory for them because I think this is one game where it really could have gone either way. I think it was one of those where I actually thought the Wartars were actually the better team like in that first half. I think it was very even, you could say. But the Wartars, I think, had the edge in that first half. But it was really the second half where the Rebels kind of came into their own, as we've seen throughout the season. And they kind of scored a few points in that second half. But, yeah, what was your thoughts on this game? Because I thought it was very hotly contested.
Yeah, see, it looked like it was going to be a little bit of a concern for the Rebels not having Andrew Callaway in that starting lineup. But Lockie Anderson, Filippo Dalgunu, and also Darby Lancaster all getting themselves tries in this game, which heavily impacted the end result. Like, at the end of the day, it was a close game. They managed to get themselves the upset victory. So that was actually 2 upsets in a row for Friday night. And it left us in a very confused state for what was going to happen on Saturday. Of course, we had the 4 games that were going to be happening back to back to back. In the end, 3 of the favourites did actually go on to win those games. But, yeah, kept that unpredictability alive for Super Rugby. The Rebels, though, I still have no idea where they're going to finish in the overall table. I feel like they've shown some good signs up against Australian teams. They just need to convert that into some big wins over the Kiwis as well.
Yeah, no, I think really with that game as well, I thought I was really impressed by Darby Lancaster. You know, he obviously was making his debut in this game as well from the Sevens Aussies team. So I was kind of intrigued to see how he kind of get along in this one, but I thought he was really good. I think he got a try to his name as well as a try assist. So, yeah, you know, he definitely made himself kind of made himself important, you could say, in this game. And moving forward, that could be something good to see because, again, they really haven't had a winger like him in terms of his quickness. I'd say, gosh, like, I mean, you can even say Corbetti or Montioni in a way because those two were kind of speedsters in their own right. So it's good to have someone like that in that 11 channel. But, yeah, again, just a good win, really, for the Rebels. Well, it will be interesting to see how kind of they do against New Zealand sides. But at the end of the day, they are still a very strong squad. So we'll see what happens on that front. But, again, moving on towards these Saturday games, we have the likes of the Drua and the Western Force. Drua coming clutch here with 31 points to 13. And, yeah, it's one of those where I think we both kind of expected them to win this game, but we did kind of expect the Western Force to put more of a contest, in all honesty. But again, can we fault them with the conditions of this game? I'm not sure because it was very, very muddy. And this is one of those where, I mean, we saw that Ratumanda try where like he kind of just like dived and had the water and mud right in. It was kind of a cool thing to see because that's kind of what you expect from rugby when you're playing schoolboy rugby. But yeah, what was your thoughts on this game? Because I thought the Fijian Drua were pretty impressive.
Well, it was certainly a unique game. of the Super Rugby
Yes.
Pacific competition. Probably the wettest game we will see in quite some time, unless, of course, got a couple more games coming up for the Fijian draw at home. But that kind of play, it just showed that pretty much put Fijian draw in their element. With a little bit of rain,
Yes.
you'd say it's a bit 50-50. When it got to that level, like, those boys just grew up playing rugby in flooded fields, diving over the try line into what looked like a swimming pool when you get yourself the try. Like, that was just the kind of game that they love to play in.
It was
And
good.
you could see it on their faces. Like, everyone was smiling for the Fijian draw. They were absolutely loving it. And the Western Force did not look like they were enjoying it. I think that Nick White spent a lot of time talking to the referee in that game overall. And in the end, it was a bit weird for that contest because we started to see the referee say kind of things that made it sound like he wasn't completely certain with his decisions. It seemed like Nick White was almost getting him to change his mind a little bit. But
I saw that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was weird. It was almost like, I honestly feel for this round of the Super Rugby Pacific competition, with the exception of a couple of the games, the referees didn't seem like they were in charge. And a lot of the players seemed to be the ones who were actually deeming what was going on during the matches. But yeah, the Fijian draw, fantastic performance, getting themselves a big win over a Western Force side who were just coming off the victory. They've now won their last, I believe it's 9 of 10 of their games taking place in Fiji for the draw. Just about getting those results away from home. Next week up against the Rebels, I think that's going to be the real test.
That'll be a good game. That'll be a really good game. But just to quiz you, do you know who was the one team they lost to at home?
Was it the Chiefs?
No.
Was it actually an Australian side?
It was the New Zealand side. Was
it? I'm thinking they beat the Hurricanes. They beat the Crusaders. Oh, it wasn't your Blues, was it? Is that why you're bringing up?
The Blues.
Oh,
I wasn't trying to show anything
answer.
because I knew you would say the Blues if I showed a reaction. So I was like, I caught you off guard there. But yeah, the Blues undefeated in Fiji. But anyway, well, I could come back to haunt me. But I know, obviously, for the following game, we have the likes of the Blues versus Moana Pacifica. And yeah, this one, I was just astonished to kind of see the result because, unfortunately, I wasn't able to kind of watch this game live because I was on a hike. But I was just kind of going through the match. Like, I was just scrolling, kind of updating it, like just try after try. I was like, oh, okay, this would be a good day for us. And I think they were up to like 20. I think it was like 28 points they were up at halftime. So it was a pretty good scoreline for the Blues. And again, March Light obviously getting a double to his name. I'm trying to think who else was pretty good in this one. To what I saw, Christie, Bryceem. Oh, it was actually it was a hat trick. It was a hat trick actually. Yeah, completely forgot there's always that one try. There was one try I always forgot. It was, I know the first one he got and the second one, but I always got the third one. But that was like the easiest one of the bunch really. But I don't think who else was pretty impressive. I mean, I guess Finley Christie did well. I think it was his 50th Super Recap, if I'm not mistaken. He was working with Telly's 100th. Yeah, I think the backline just functioned to its best. I think that's what you kind of expect. And again, Moana Pacifica didn't really have much to answer to what I saw. I mean, they had obviously a try to the name, but yeah, they weren't able to kind of produce as much as you'd like. But yeah, what was your thoughts on that one? Because I think it was just very one-sided.
It was, and it was always going to be, I believe, for that contest. As much as we wanted to see it be a close game like last time, like it just seemed like the teams were a little bit mismatched. The fact that the Blues, for their away game at Eden Park, got themselves the win. I said it all the way through, and I actually said it on the live stream as well. Hawke's Bay would have been the perfect location for that game, mainly because so many of those Moana Pacifica players actually play for the Magpies. So it would have almost been a home away from home kind of game for those guys. But yeah, everything in this game was pretty much set up for the Blues to win dominantly, and that's what they did. And I think that a few of their players really stepped up. Caleb Clark, I thought, actually looked relatively solid throughout this game as well.
He was very good.
So
very good.
It's probably good signs for him, and he has to play well at the moment because there are so many left wingers in the New Zealand teams all looking for that spot in the ABs. Yeah, Caleb Clark doing relatively well there. Also in the 4-pack, I felt like the Blues were almost there. Like we saw some really nice play, but then at other times it seemed like they weren't quite able to dominate the breakdown as we would expect, and maybe that was because of the absence of Dalton Papali'i. But yeah, Hoskins Atutu, he's still having a very good season, and I'm looking forward to seeing those boys in action again. But yeah, overall, like Moana Pacifica, yes, they can be disappointed, but at the same time, like, you know, it was always going to be an upward battle, and it was always going to be tough. But I still feel like they put in a little bit of a valiant effort, you know, like they did all right. I didn't think they did too badly. And I know that sounds weird to say when they lose by 39, but like, you know, it was a hard day at the office.
I just don't understand why they're not starting Havili at 10. I just don't understand.
That's a big problem that they have at the moment. Yes,
this is the reason why I understand giving obviously Christian Leofel minutes, but it's one of those like where why? I mean, again, I can understand doing it in this game because it's one of those games where you're not expected to win. Like for the previous game, they had they played against the likes of, you have to remind me here. Who did they play in the last game? I have to look up right here.
Was it the?
I know it was a winnable game for them. It was the Brumbies. So that was one where I think
going into that one didn't quite go well.
But it was one of those where I thought, he's in Canberra, and I thought, okay, he's used to the environment, so at least it's a bit more in his favor to what it would be in this game at Eden Park. But yeah, I mean, again, they got demolished in that one, so there's no obviously going two ways about it. But it's just one of those where I kind of just want to see Havili at that 10 spot because he's been really good for Montreal Pacifica in terms of kind of just being that quarterback player in terms of that 10 position. So I kind of just wanted to kind of be in that 10. But again, we'll see what happens going forward because they may also switch it up in the future games. But again, going on towards the Hurricanes Highlanders one, this is definitely a game in terms of the margin was not expected. In all honesty, I thought this would be a much closer game. But yeah, the Hurricanes just ran away with it really within that first half. As they scored I think it was 21 points, 6 points unanswered, I think it was, in that first half. I mean, obviously won the game, 47 points each, I think 12 at the end of it. Yeah, just it's one of those where there's a lot to work on for the Highlanders. I mean, just going to you first. What was your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, well, it would have been a bit of deja vu for them because up against the Chiefs, of course, at halftime they were down 28-0. So this game being 26-0 down, like they would have felt like they could come back into it, but then unfortunately for them, didn't happen. They didn't quite get back into the game. That Jacob Ratamaitavuki-Netkins yellow card early on, I think, really cost them. And even the commentators were a little bit uncertain whether or not it should have been a yellow card, but in the end it cost them 2 converted tries. And that was kind of like, in a weird way to say, like, of course, there were a lot of other good moments for the Hurricanes, but that was already that early turning point in the game that the Highlanders almost couldn't come back from. And it's a shame in a way because a lot of people wanted to see this one be a close game. But, yeah, some very good play from the Hurricanes. The biggest concern from this whole game, though, Cam Roigard ended up with that knee injury, trying to sidestep his way around the referee. Didn't quite work out for him and then does get tackled. And he's going for scans in Auckland, I believe, is the last I've heard. So we've got to wait and see what that means. But dislocated knees, probably 6 to 8 weeks.
That's
MCL's probably around that same stage. ACL, though, if it's anything more serious, an ACL's normally
end of season.
7 to 9 months or so. So
it's going to be end of season.
Could be a brutal one.
I have a bad feeling. It's going to be either 6 to 8 weeks, which they can deal with because it gives them enough time, obviously, to go into the playoffs, which they'll be. And then we have TJ Perenara, so we'll get into them very shortly. But if it's a 9-month one, like similar to what we had, like with Quinta Pai in a way, then. Oof, that is a big blow to not just the Hurricanes, but also to the All Blacks. So it's fascinating because again, like I know this is obviously very, very early on, but if he isn't available for selection, obviously this is just very hypothetical. Who would be the free you'd select? Because again, he would be the first choice, obviously with Aaron Smith gone now. So it's interesting to see who you go in terms of that free halfbacks because. Personally, I mean, I've always said Fafakataba has to be one because I just think he's, in terms of development for him, he's always been a good player. But in a weird way, I wouldn't start him, though, because he's actually, for me, he's always been better off the bench in terms of making an impact. But the question is, if that's the case, then who do you start? Do you go with Finley Christie? Do you go with Shaver Rowe? Do you go with Cortis Latama? Do you go with Mitchell Drummond? I mean, there's a few players who have a name for themselves. So who would you think of if you had to say free, just off the back right now, only if Roigard is not available?
Well, it's quite interesting because I honestly think that there is a slight chance that they consider TJ Perenara as an option.
Ooh, okay.
Now,
I like that.
Losing Aaron Smith, you lose a lot of experience, of course. So maybe they bring TJ in as a little bit of that mentor role, plus having a bit of stability and experience under the belt. So I honestly think with that Roigard injury, even without that Roigard injury, we may even see TJ Perenara make his way
Okay.
into the side. I think that alongside TJ, if we aren't having Roy Guard, Finley Christie will probably be there, but I'll be honest, I know you're a Blues boy, I'm still not completely sold on him.
Yeah, so I think really with Finley Christie, I do agree with you actually that in all honesty, I don't think he hasn't had the best start to the season to what he's had in previous seasons. So I actually wouldn't select him myself. I actually wouldn't go with Finley Christie just currently for what I've seen because I think there's been better scrum halves compared to him. I mean, I would go with Cortis Latimer. I think he's been up there as one of the best actually, along with Cam Morgan if he was in the conversation. But really now, I think you'd have to go with what Cortis Latimer. I guess you'd go TJ Bernard in a way. I guess you would go with him for experience, and then Shaver Rowe. I mean, I like Shaver Rowe, but again, like there is just Finley Christie, who's just a very solid scrum half. So it just feels weird to not go with him at the same time as well, even though he hasn't had the best start. So I think like I would still go with Finley Christie in a weird way, but I wouldn't start him. He would like
so you're not starting Folau Fakatava and you're not starting Finley Christie. So who are you starting? You're starting Xavier Rowe.
I would no. So what I would personally do is I would start Cortis Latimer. I would have Folau Fakatava, and then you would have Tito Karanara. But I'm saying if you don't want to because I don't think Tito Karanara will go in because I just think it's one of those where it's a bit of he goes in only because of experience. If not, then obviously you have Finley Christie, but then he's the third choice. I would not even consider him as a second or first. Whereas for Tito Bernard, if you put him in, then he could be considered as the 1 or 2. So it's a bit of I don't know, because he has to play a lot more games, Bernard, for me to consider him. So that's why I haven't he's not in my thinking for the meantime. But anyway, we'll see what happens on that Friday because there's obviously a long way to go, and we don't know obviously for right now what's the kind of word on Cameron Morgan's injury. But again, obviously going on towards the last game of that of the round we had was the Reds versus the Brumbies. This was a very, very close game in terms of a derby. And kind of what you expect, what I expected all along. And this was only separated by 1 point, with the Brumbies winning 20 points to 19. And yeah, I honestly thought the Reds were going to win this. It's one of those where I just going into this game, I thought the Reds early on actually looked at the better side, but Tom Wright he just had a great game for the Brumbies, and he's obviously a player that we discussed in our fullbacks video. And I mean, going off that game, I would even bump him up maybe like 1 spot or 2 if you wanted to. But yeah, what was your thoughts on this? Because it was a very kind of close contest to what I said beforehand.
Yeah, see, it was a game that the Reds, on paper, looking at the stats, should have won quite comfortably. But I think that the elephant in the room was the fact that there was so many times that every single player out there on the field was dropping the ball. Like for the Brumbies, for the Reds, don't know what they put on the ball before the game, but whatever it was very slippery and it was stopping a lot of momentum to be created for these two teams. The Reds will look at this game as one that was should have well and truly been won, and it should have been in the bag, but they just let it slip. And the Brumbies, they hung in there. That's probably the best way of describing their performance in this game. Yes, they had some good moments themselves. They were ahead at halftime, 10 points to the 7, I believe it was, and then in the end, managing to once again get that try at the important time, get those points on the board.
It's good.
And it's all about taking your chances. And I think that the Brumbies, in the limited amount of chances, the thing is, though, they still had 400 running meters. It wasn't exactly a bad game for them in terms of stats as well. But it's just they were, in some regards, dominated in terms of the stats in favour of the Reds. But they still got the win. And I feel it was a bit of a weird game, I'll be honest. It wasn't what I expected when these two sides went head-to-head in terms of the way that the game played out, mainly because of all the handling that we saw. True. It kind of stopped that free-flowing back and forth because, like you mentioned in the preview, normally very high scoring. When these two sides go head-to-head, back and forth, I would have added an extra 20 points on top of each of these two sides, and that's normally what we expect when they go face-to-face.
Yeah. No, agreed. It's one of those where it was very cagey just from the start to the very beginning. So again, it's like I said, it's what you expect from this game, but again, it's normally been a lot more high scoring. So, but yeah, no, it's good wins for the Brumbies no matter what. Obviously, that puts them now obviously in third position, so it puts them in a good position going forward. And of course, the Reds are now in 5th. But yeah, anyway, both sides are still in a good run of form, I think. So they can kind of move on obviously from this game, but But yeah, I think that's kind of really it for this review, guys. In terms of round 6 of Super Rugby Pacific. So also, let us know in the comments what you guys think in terms of which players kind of stood out for you in terms of, I guess, like, the teams that play this week. Obviously, let us know. Just like the video. We'd greatly appreciate that if you guys can subscribe to our channel. Check out our respective channels if you would like to. I mean, you might as well. But anyway, we'll see you guys next time.